Here's your WPCD forecast from yours truly, Chambana Weather meteorologist Andrew Pritchard. For today, mostly cloudy with a few scattered showers and thunderstorms possible and a high of 82 degrees. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a stray shower or thunderstorm possible before midnight and a low of 66 degrees. Tomorrow, partly cloudy with a high of 80 degrees. Tomorrow night, clear skies with a low of 57 degrees. And for Saturday, beautiful sunny skies, lower humidity, and a high of 79 degrees.
But the question of justice has concerned me greatly of late. And I say to any creature who may be listening,
You shall not pass!
Oh no, they sent the wrong Spock.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Live long and suck it, Zachary Quinto.
Get ready because the man behind the helm here at WPCD has entered the studio. That's right, Station Director Dean Geiken has taken the chair. So fire up the warp drive, set your phasers to stun. It's time to go Geekin with Geiken.
Oh my gosh.
That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was like, the real Andrew Pritchard was here in studio reading the weather forecast. Oh, he is. He's actually here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we have a special guest in today. As many of you who listen to the radio station know, we have a very special and localized weather forecast from Chambana meteorologist Andrew Pritchard. And Andrew is actually in the studio today. He read the weather forecast, and now he gets to be
He
our
sounded
guest.
much better than all the nervous radio students that tried to read it. That was really good. It's
exactly.
like you've done it before or something.
Well, I'm well practiced. My wife likes to make me do the weather sometimes. Do your weather voice.
That's awesome.
So, Andrew, you, how long have you been a meteorologist now?
Well, I guess officially I finished up college in 2012, so I guess about 5 years, but I've been kind of in the weather business going all the way back to 2003 with local meteorologist Ed Keyser, who was over at WILL. I was just 16 at the time, but he gave me my first part-time job as his weather assistant. So
You mentioned Ed Keyser. I don't know how many of our listeners know who Ed Keyser is, but I certainly do because I also worked with him at WILL. And he had almost a cult-like following here
he was
in
a weather
Chambana.
legend.
Can you explain a little bit about that? And I think that he has kind of inspired you to be the new Ed Keyser, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So Ed started over at WILL right around the time that I was born. He and my dad actually started working there right around the same time. So they started a friendship there early on. Ed was at my first birthday party. Actually, I just had my birthday back in April, and we dug out some old video. I was watching that with my mom, and sure enough, the camera pans over, and there's a very young Ed Keyser in the background there. So he and my dad formed a friendship there, and my dad had an interest in the weather. He was a storm spotter years ago, so I'd kind of picked up on that, and then Ed caught that, and it just kind of spread.
Yeah.
He was really into the severe weather, the tornadoes. He would get lots of tornado footage from other stations around the country, and he would send those home with me. So I like to joke that when I was a kid, I wasn't really watching cartoons as much as I was watching tornado videos on the TV.
So he had a real influence on you.
Absolutely, yeah. I credit him with that. He helped me, mentored me a lot along the way, and really got me started here.
And now here you are as a meteorologist. So.
Would you say that's like the main reason you became a meteorologist, just from that being exposed at such a young age?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I was just obsessed with storms and tornadoes when I was very, very young, and so I absolutely credit that.
So you got a question?
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask. As a meteorologist, we who don't really know, we call you weather forecasters and stuff like that. What goes on behind the scenes to come up with the weather forecast that you give us on a daily basis and stuff? I mean, not to give any tricks of the trade or anything like this. Who knows? Maybe he's got a bunch of forecasts that he just pulls out of a hat and he just writes them down.
I'm sure some people think that about the weather guy.
Well, no, there are tricks. Everyone's got their own, little tricks and tools and different things they like to do. A lot of pattern recognition just from doing it over the years. Before I was doing forecasts for the radio stations or, online around the community, I was doing storm chasing on my own. So that was, doing a lot of forecasting. And you just start to recognize different patterns and different weather setups that can help you a lot. But it's an all-day thing. And then certainly when you're doing the weather for folks on the radio in the morning, you're up very early. I've got a first alarm that goes off around 4:50, which I don't always acknowledge, and maybe kind of push that off for a bit. But you're up very early to get a look at things. I kind of know what the weather's going to look like the day before when I go to bed, but you got to get up and make sure that that's still the case. You know, maybe you're expecting storms in the morning. You wake up and it's sunny and the storms are 100 miles to your north. So you kind of sit down, you take a look at what's happening right now. There's plenty of weather models out there that can forecast the future for you, but you don't want to dive into that until you know what's it doing outside right now.
Right.
And in your area, because perhaps you pull up those weather models then and it's got no idea, and then you know to just throw that away, because if it doesn't know what's going on right now at 5 in the morning, how can you trust it to be accurate later in the afternoon?
Now, it's a much different world we live in. Can you imagine being a weather forecaster 50, 60, 70 years ago? I mean, that must have been...
How did they even do that? You know, they obviously didn't have nearly as much.
A lot of hand analysis, a lot of communicating, you know, through the radio with whatever.
Like what's it doing in Missouri?
Yes, exactly.
To predict what's happening in
that down
Illinois.
the road. So it's a lot easier now that you've got satellite observations, radar, and then these computer models that can ingest that and kind of predict the future, if you want to call it that.
Do you ever feel, you know, just like, I'd say the weather guy, you know, that's one of the more trusted or listened to people, you know, like people really respect your opinion and they're waiting for you every morning. I mean, that's got to feel pretty good, you know, like it's like I hold the weather news, you know.
It feels good, but at the same time, it can be stressful when you put out a forecast for, you know, sunny skies and at 9 or 10 o'clock those morning
You ever start
clouds
getting some text messages like, hey, Andrew, what's going on here?
I'm just always looking at the sky like, come on now,
you know,
let's get it together.
I depend on your weather forecast, as a matter of fact, and I've even sent you notes above and beyond what you send to me for the weather forecast, and you're pretty darn good and pretty accurate, to the point that we had an event going on, and people were like, oh my gosh, it's going to rain, it's going to do this, and I said, no, it's not. And a lot of people did not believe me, and I said, trust me, in our area, it's not going to rain. And they're like, how do you know? I said, I have an insider.
Inside tip.
Yeah, and how far out can you accurately predict the weather?
Okay, I'll preface that by saying it depends on the time of the year and the kind of weather patterns you're dealing with. When you're in the winter, you know, and a difference of 10 to 20 miles can change your snowfall totals from 1 inch to 10 inches. I'm not comfortable going that far out, but I would say on average about 5 to 7 days.
5 to 7 days.
Yeah. But
all right. Well, that kind of brings up another point that I've always had a question about. The Farmer's Almanac. They try to predict an entire year. Now,
don't get me started on that.
I know, but from my understanding, on average, they're pretty accurate. But I know they're very general.
Mm-hmm. It is very general, and I say don't get me started on that because it always seems that somewhere in September and October, I start hearing that it's going to be a terrible winter, and I start wondering, where is that coming from? And it's always the Farmer's Almanac says it's going to be just an awful winter. And so I like to go back sometimes and pull out what the forecast was from the Farmer's Almanac and kind of compare that to what actually happened. So it's a fun little gift. You know, I usually end up with one of those, like a stocking stuffer or something like that.
Yes.
It's fun, but no one can plan, you know, and give a really detailed, accurate forecast that far out. But certainly seasonal forecasts are possible. But that, again, that's, you know, maybe a month to 3 months out, and that's a very general
So
forecast.
you say any 10-day forecast is really a 50-50. Is that what
Definitely 50-50. I wouldn't go as far as to call it, you know, a joke or anything like that, but it's, you know, don't cancel or, you know, Sharpie in your plans.
I would imagine the temperatures are usually pretty close, right? Is it more or less just like it's going to be cloudy or sunny or rainy and stuff like that? Or can like say in 10 days you think it's going to be 80 degrees, but it might end up being 100, you know, it could.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're forecasting a cold front to move through and you think it's going to go from, you know, really hot, humid weather and that, but the cold front's going to go through on day 9 there, and then what happens? Your storm system slows down, and then everyone thinks, "Oh, Saturday is supposed to be 75, and it's still 90 degrees." So,
and you're the one who gets blamed.
Yes, and so I'm not taking that blame.
Do people do they freak out more over? Do you think thunderstorms, winter weather, or when it's just too hot outside? What is just like the biggest thing that people?
It's the winter weather. I think right now people. I mean, it was kind of dry for a while. A little bit that pressure is off now that we've had a little bit of rain, but I was getting nervous there. You know, we had a stretch there where every day there was a slight chance of a thunderstorm, and so I had to keep that in the forecast, but it just was not happening here in Champaign-Urbana. But I think it's the winter. You know, people grumble about that, and people want to know to the 10th of an inch how much snow they're going to have in their driveway, and it's just...
Yeah, I cannot help but I always refer back to, I'm a gamer geek. I always refer back to my early days of D&D where you rolled percentile dice. And so when you say there's a 20% chance or a 30% chance of rain, in my geeky brain, I'm always like, man, if my character had a 30% chance of surviving that, would he roll? Take
Sure.
it. And, I'm like, 30% chance. That's a pretty good chance.
What's interesting about that, too, is the wording's a little funny on that. It's not necessarily, if you hear a 30% chance of thunderstorms.
It's a 70% chance that...
Well, it's not actually a 3 in 10 chance that you're going to get a thunderstorm. More generally, what you're usually seeing there is they're expecting 30% coverage of thunderstorms across the area. So
explain that. I mean, we're going to go into another segment here, but explain that exactly.
Sure. So, you're watching the local TV weather forecast, and they're forecasting a 30% chance of thunderstorms across the viewing area. What they're generally saying is that 30% of the area will see thunderstorms. So 30%
I never knew that.
I did not know.
So
that changes things
in a way,
a lot.
Still kind of the same thing, but it's not that your driveway has a 3 in 10 chance that you're going to see thunderstorm and a 70% chance that your driveway will not see.
So the area that they are predicting for, and that can be a very large area. That could be like from Bloomington to,
Absolutely.
Crawfordsville almost, in a sense, Indiana. 30% of the area could get something.
Yes.
So it could be way south, it could be really north, or it could be just one spot right in the middle.
That's pretty good.
That changed. Wow.
What a nugget of gold right there.
Yeah, no kidding. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about your storm chasing, if you've got the time.
I have all the time.
All right. Well, we'll be right back.
All right, we'll be right back.
Well, we're back here on Geekin with Geiken, and Andrew Pritchard, our meteorologist from Chambana Weather.
Chief meteorologist Andrew Pritchard.
Yes.
Still here.
So I just wanted to ask you, first, Twister the movie. We were talking off air. You did a little thing at the art theater where you sort of gave an intro to the movie, right? And then you guys all got to watch it at the art theater.
I did. That was kind of another
That's
little
pretty
dream
amazing.
come true back in
So
May.
I was a little kid who loved the movie Twister. I'm guessing you were exactly the same.
Also loved Twister, yes.
Twister. Now, is any of that very accurate? Like at the end there when they're trying to, obviously no, not like the science of it and tying yourself to a storm, pipe, but how they're actually trying to deploy sensors into the tornadoes. I feel like that is actually something that...
That's absolutely true. That it was based on, things that were going on and still are going on where, to study a tornado, you somehow got to get readings from inside or very close to that tornado. So that was kind of based off of some scientists that started back in the 70s that had a instrument very similar to Dorothy that was named Toto that they were trying to put in the path of tornadoes. And there are still folks out there trying to do that.
That's awesome. And so I also saw you gave a talk at the planetarium. And I mean, if you haven't been to the planetarium, it's a pretty amazing place. And what did you do there exactly? It's the World of Science Talk?
Yes. And it's...
We promoted that.
Yes,
yeah,
we did.
It's mostly focused on tornadoes, where I was kind of inspired by another Ed Keyser program where every year he gave a tornado seminar, a tornado show here locally where he just gave some information on tornadoes, safety, the science behind them, and showed some really cool video that had come out from the last few years.
Are these like your videos and photos you're showing?
And so some of it now is. I put a storm chasing twist on that where I kind of talk a little about what storm chasing is like when you get away from, Hollywood or the entertainment side of that with some of the reality shows that are out there. But just kind of look at what storm chasing is really like and then show some of my video. And then I've got plenty of friends out there who sometimes get much cooler video than me, and so they're generous and let me show some of that. So it's something that we're trying to make an annual thing here as well.
So you're storm chasing. You have to abide, of course, by the roads that are available to you. What's your strategy for chasing, or do you try to intercept it or catch up to it, or?
I personally don't want anything to do with intercepting the tornadoes. I like to watch the storm, and I like to be able to see as much of the storm as possible. So for me personally, there's a million different strategies out there, but I like to hang back a bit. I don't like to be driving while the storm's doing something really cool, particularly producing a tornado. I hate to be having to reposition or maybe have my back to it. So by being out ahead of the storm, I've got much more time where I can kind of sit, film that, and shoot photos, and kind of watch the whole process taking shape in front of me. So yeah, it takes a little bit of planning, making sure that I'm always looking downstream where the roads are going to be able to take me, and sometimes it's not possible. You see a big river in front of you, and it's, well, the storm better do something cool now, or I'm going to say goodbye.
I'm guessing the country roads, you're very familiar with those, right?
Oh, yeah. I know the country roads around central Illinois like the back of my own hand, and they are the best in the United States. You know, Tornado Alley out in Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, they get storms like, you know, you would never dream of here, but the roads can just be a real pain. They're often mud. They're not in this, you know, we've got a grid road network here where you know, I'm cruising down the road and I know
that in a mile
without
you can
fail
turn right
I've got
or left.
another right or left turn that I can take. So, you know, I followed a really cool storm on Sunday and I was able to just zigzag down these roads that I know.
That's awesome. Do you ever, okay, this is a good one. What's your favorite storm chasing story, or just a favorite? Like a memorable one that just really sticks with you?
Or even a close call?
Yeah.
Well, my favorite storm that I ever chased was back in June of 2008, and it was a day where a big severe weather outbreak was forecast in Iowa and Minnesota, and a lot of my friends went out that way. I actually turned down an offer to go along with them simply because I was really tired. I'd been out the 2 weeks before that, so I was just, you know, in the mood to rest. I put the Cubs game on that day. I decided to check on them over in Iowa and saw that conditions were actually becoming kind of favorable over a little bit closer to us here in Illinois. So I thought that what is known as a cap was going to kind of suppress thunderstorms over here, but I decided to kind of keep an eye on it, and then saw the first signs of a thunderstorm going up towards the Kankakee area. So I just threw everything in the car and took off up Interstate 57, and almost immediately I had to drive through part of the storm and came out of the rain, and there's just this huge black ominous tornado, you know, going across the countryside. And then I followed the storm for an hour or two, and it just, I think it produced 4 or 5 total, where it was just, you know, one tornado after another. And it was just really memorable because, you know, not necessarily because I knew something everyone didn't, but just because of how things aligned. I was relatively alone on that storm, where it's kind of tough where everyone's got a camera these days. There's a lot of storm chasers out there. It's pretty rare you get something unique.
Do you use an SLR type of camera, or are you just using your cell phone?
I do use an SLR type camera
to get the good quality photos.
Yeah, and I started with an SLR film camera, you know, long ago, where you had to get the shot right because, you know, it's not like digital where you've got 1,000 shots or more now on memory cards. But now I'm in the digital world, so I'm shooting with an SLR digital camera. I used to shoot more video than photos, but now I've got, you know, realized the joy of hanging a really nice tornado photograph on your wall. So I used to forget to take a picture of the tornado. I would just shoot video and enjoy it, but now I make sure just put the video camera on a tripod and take some photos.
Yeah.
I was looking up some information on you. I Googled you. That's pretty amazing. Someone can Google you. You know, I think if I Googled Scott Chambers, I don't think anything would come up. But I saw a quote from you, and it said, "You chase because you have to." Could you explain that?
You know, maybe you want to call it fear of missing out or something like that, but it's just, I can't imagine a world where I could just ignore it. You know, you get older, you got responsibilities. It's not so easy as when I was a teenager and it was just, you know, see a cool storm, go after it. But no, I live for it. I mean, I live for forecasting the weather, but I also live for experiencing it. And that means, you know, the laboratory is outside and watching it with my eyes. There's no storm is, you know, like any storm from the past. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, again, this storm on Sunday, I didn't expect it to become nearly as, you know, beautiful and photogenic as it did. And so that's just, I think, where that comes from. I have to be out there experiencing the weather.
Yeah, some of my, not best memories, but favorite things to do as a kid was watch some of these massive storms come in and just sit on the front porch.
It's mesmerizing.
Yeah.
I think most people, I would say more than not, have never seen a tornado. You know what I mean? I've never seen one up close.
Oh, I've seen numerous.
You have?
Yes.
So that's pretty. I've never seen one. I imagine you've seen more than you can count, probably.
And I don't keep track. There's some people who could tell you, you know, I've seen 126 tornadoes and stuff like that.
Do
but
you still
then
get
you get
scared?
down to, I don't get scared. There's adrenaline involved, but it's like you're looking at something that shouldn't be there. I mean, you're seeing the sky come in contact with the ground, and it's, again, I've used the word mesmerizing already, but it's really surreal to see that.
I remember as a kid seeing my very first tornado, and it was to the south of the little town that we were in, and it was a very skinny tornado, and it looked like the devil's finger coming out of the sky.
Those skinny ones some people dream of seeing the big, huge tornado, but those, you know,
skinny ones it
looks like an elephant trunk or something like that, but they're so fascinating to watch the way they just sneak around, and it's just...
I'm pretty jealous. Yeah. I've always wanted to at least just see one, you know, but...
Well, they're hard to find.
Yeah. I guess you don't really want to go looking for them, right? That brings up a question. How many times have you feared for your life? Has that ever come? Have you ever been that close?
Feared for my life. No, there's been times where a storm evolves quicker than you expected it to, where maybe you're not repositioned where you want to be at, and so you got to quickly get out of the way. But I've never been in a situation where I thought my life is in danger, and that goes in part with my strategy of staying ahead of the storm. I'm not often right next to the tornadoes. That's not my dream position. So staying ahead of things keeps me ahead of the game.
Yeah.
What's the farthest you've ever traveled for a storm chase?
I have seen tornadoes from North Dakota down to Texas. I had a time back in 2008 where I saw a tornado in North Dakota. The next day I saw a tornado in Kansas. The next day I was down in Texas. So I've driven from Colorado to Illinois in a day. It's just storm chasing's mostly driving.
Right. I'm sure there's been a few tickets involved in that, hasn't there?
Yes. Okay. But, at this point, the guy I'm storm chasing with most of the time, my best friend Colin, we've been doing this together for years, and the way we've got it set up, he does most of the driving, and so I get to relax and do the forecasting portion of things, and, I call him the best driver in storm chasing.
All right. Well, we have to kind of wrap up because Scott's got to go to class.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Did you have a final question there?
I actually do. It's not even a storm-related question. I saw that you were a Cubs fan.
Oh, my gosh.
I imagine this past October was pretty exciting for you.
It was a blur. I went out and I, did things I never thought I'd do. Game 7, when they tied it up there, I went out and talked to the tree in the front yard and just, they're going to come back. The Cubs are going to come back and win this. This is how it happens, right?
And it is.
So it was a blur, and, it was kind of a struggle the first part of the season, but it's got that feeling again. So
what was more exciting, chasing a storm or the Cubs winning the World Series?
Oh, man. Two different kinds of exciting.
For sure.
Well, Andrew, thank you very much for being on the show with us today. For those who need to know the weather forecast right now, mostly cloudy today with a few scattered showers and thunderstorms, possible on a high of 82 degrees, and that comes directly from the horse's mouth, Andrew Pritchard. So
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks for coming on.
And as always, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. All right, guys, we're going to get right back into the best alternative music around. I got to go to class, unfortunately, but we'll be back next Thursday, same time, 8:30 with Geekin with Geiken.